okay, you get to teach, say, about 60-70%, and you get to do like admin 30-40%. It's not really 60-40, you see, you teach 60-70%, all right, and then you do admin 60-70%
Oh
as well.
no. Welcome to the
Tropical Arts Club.
da-da-da-da,
Da-da.
slightly less enthusiastic welcome than usual, but
It's very serene and calm.
Exactly.
And we hope that you're feeling calm at home right now, watching us.
we're so calm, and I'm so calm especially, because today is an episode of nostalgia. See, years ago I was in design school learning graphic design, and one of the people who made my journey so wonderful is here today. Behind these plants is a man who, in the day, teaches young people the art of design and the design of art. And at night or on weekends, he rocks a Leica and takes beautiful pictures of people and places. He has recently launched a book called Vendorama, which was accompanied by an exhibition, and I owe so much to this man. Behind the plants, let's put our hands together for Leslie Niao!
All right.
I'll help you in the
Yes.
plants. Yep.
Welcome
to the Tropical Arts Club.
Thank you for the invite.
Thank you. We're very happy to have you here. So, Leslie, how long has it been since I walked through the hallowed halls of your
Wow.
education?
Wow, I cannot recall exactly, but at least 5 years.
I guess I'm
Never
forgettable. It's
But
been a while.
it's not about you today, John.
Thanks, Janice.
So please, okay. So I want to know, how did you get into lecturing?
I mean, I love design. I often tell people that I cannot imagine myself doing something else other than design. As much as I am passionate about doing design, I was also aware that I could teach. I guess that kind of like go hand in hand, and after certain years in the industry, I mean, I was an art director before, so, leading a small team. And so instead of impacting a small team, perhaps I can contribute in a bigger scale. So I applied. And I got in.
So how many years have you been lecturing?
8 years
Okay.
in Singapore Poly. Yeah,
8 years, wow.
8 years.
So all you applicants for Singapore Polytechnic, this may be your future lecturer.
It's a good education. I turned out all right. It's not about me, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it really isn't. You've been teaching for about 8 years.
Yes.
And what do you think people have? Do you think they have any like misconceptions about being a lecturer?
We have received very not so nice comments about people from the industry, and some of these comments go along the line of like, oh, if you are jaded in the industry, you get tired, then maybe you want to consider going into lecturing because the pace is slower, it's more stable, and you just teach. So I would definitely consider that as a misconception. Why? Because it's definitely not slower. I mean, just to put things into perspective, we used to joke among us lecturers, is that when we went for interview, to become a lecturer. So the facts given to us was, okay, you get to teach, say, about 60-70%, and you get to do like admin 30-40%. Now, being in it for 8 years, I would joke about it and tell people that actually it's not really 60-40, you see, you teach 60-70%, all right, and then you do admin 60-70%
Oh,
as well.
no.
So that's kind of a fact of life for a lecturer, more so in a poly.
I see.
The misconception is that it's not really a stroll in a park. Lots of challenges. I mean, you not only get to take care of your own domain area. My case is graphic design, I mean, as John has mentioned. But there are just 101 things to look into: the admin, the curriculum planning, counseling, and wow, the list goes on and on. So I got a nasty comment recently. Somebody
Oh,
from
no.
somebody from the industry said that, lecturers is if you get jaded, you just sign up to be a lecturer. And when we were talking among us lecturers, So the common consensus to that question or that remark was that we would like to invite that so on and so forth person to come and we think that probably it will not last 3 months.
Of all these unexpected responsibilities that come onto you as a lecturer, which one sticks out the most as something that you did not foresee at all?
I recall when I started, it's quite a paradigm shift because you got to get adjusted to the mindset of the students. You being one of the earlier ones, okay, it's not about John, so we shall not tell stories about John. But yeah, that was one of the key thing about. You come in with certain ideals of how, teaching, changing lives, but when you're on the ground, reality has a story on its own to tell. So we just got to get adjusted to that. How, what is reality and what is that ideals that you come in with. Yeah.
What were the ideals you came in with?
Yeah.
I mean, like what I say, teach, impact lives, influence the future designers, to populate the industry, make the industry better. So yeah, that was one of the ideals that I came in. I mean, it's not a wrong ideal. It's also not that it is completely false. It's not false at all. It's just that the way to go about it, the way of impacting life proved more challenging than I thought initially.
You've taught many students like John. Were there a lot of students who decided to pursue design? And if there were, what were their successful traits or traits you thought they had that made them want to go into design?
Right. I shall answer this question from the perspective of the Singapore Polytechnic. You see, the Polytechnic, it's an interesting phase in the life of a student. So when you talk about design, I mean, during my days, graphic design is kind of unheard of. And I had to do a lot of convincing where my parents are concerned just to, let me pursue this field. So fast forward to our current day and age, you'll find that the students who applied for poly education, they come from a background of secondary. Most of them are from secondary schools. They come from a background where they have little or no idea what design is all about.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, yes, currently the MOE is doing a good job, promoting things like learning journeys, getting them exposed to poly education even before a few years even before they come here. But most of the students who come to study design, they have very little understanding what really it is in the broader picture, how they will end up, what kind of jobs they will really get into, and even the jobs that they're aiming for, what is the common practices. Usually there will be this percentage of students who follow through, graduated, who did not end up in the industry because it's a discovery phase. Yeah, it's a phase of discovery, where they get to find out what they really want to do. It's not that bad actually. The percentage, being in Singapore Poly for 8 years, the percentages over the year is quite encouraging. Not a big percentage of them kind of left the industry. I mean there are definitely, but it's not alarming. So I get to keep my job.
Are you at liberty to share these figures? What numbers are we looking at?
Okay, let's put it this way. We have 3 key groups of students who went on after their graduation. I mean, you have about a third going on for higher studies. But even higher studies itself, the courses that they sign up for is also an indication that is it design related or something totally unrelated. So you have that 1/3 for going for higher education. Then we have the boys who went to army. You did
Training to
your
be
part,
soldier.
Exactly. So we have that 1/3, and then we have another 1/3 who went directly into the industry to work. So it's not that bad.
That's good to hear. Of all the kids who don't enter creative industries, I noticed that, at least when I was in design school, that many of us sort of had an idea that this is or isn't for us early on, but we weren't quite sure. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on this. Like, when do you think is a good time to call it quits? Are there signs? Is there a gut feeling?
As I've mentioned earlier, it's a phase of discovery. So, I mean, personally, I'm very open to students who make that discovery. I mean, I cite an example. I have a good student. I still remember her name, Jean. She was after you actually.
Jean.
Yeah.
Hope you're
Jean,
watching
if you're
the
listening.
show.
She was in interior design. Good student, good grades, did well. But on the grad show night, I had a talk with her, and she said, "I'm not pursuing design. I'm going into counseling." She found her calling, her purpose. I mean, what however you want to name it. But I was glad for her because she was sure that is what she wants to do. So I'm very okay with that, because she made the discovery, she made the connection, and she very intentionally, yeah, this is where I want to go. There are others who the 3 years kind of like scared the hell out of them and they said no, design is not for me. I mean, that itself is a discovery. Let me just cite a few examples. We have people went to work in Bird Park. We have an immigration officer, and we have some who become the typical insurance agents. I don't know. I have this thing against insurance agents. No offense. Yeah.
Stop messaging me, bro.
Stop ping me at the MRT station.
So where I'm coming from. I mean, another perspective is that the Singapore's economy itself is evolving. So we find that the typical traditional creative companies that do that typical hiring year after year, our graduates, we find that people outside or companies outside that scope, they are doing hiring as well. I mean, a classic example is the rise of user experience. So you find that banks, you find that commercial entities, they start to see the value of design. I mean, in this case, UX. And they come up with their own departments, their own groupings, and they do the hiring. And this trend will continue to evolve. So you find that companies not in the creative industry, they are also starting to move. It's not very fast, but at least it's happening. So where design education is concerned, it's a good sign, because our students have that potential to go places. So that's another perspective. So when somebody tells us that I'm not continue say specifically graphic design, but the skill sets that were picked up will enable he or she to be in a good position to kind of like make the switch. In our course, we often say that the design career progression is not the typical linear, where you start off as junior designer, senior designer, assistant art director. So, but it's multi-track. So you can jump from a traditional media to digital media, from a branding studio to advertising. So it's kind of like flexible. Yeah, John is a good example. Yeah.
It's not about me, though. It's not about me.
No, it's not about me. I'm just citing
you
this
are
as an
a good example. Hope you like our Tropical Arts Club logo. It's all done by
Let's
John.
take a break while I cry. We'll be back after this messages from our sponsors.
Time. What could be more precious than time? And what time is more precious than ad time? What do you sell? Chairs? We could have sold so many chairs in the past 10 seconds, but here I am talking about time. And with all those chairs you could have sold, you could have flown to the Bahamas, where you would have met the love of your life. Her name's Helena. She's beautiful. You're in love. You fly out for your honeymoon to the Great Wall of China and you have 5 children, one of whom you will name Dominic. And you love him. You love him so much. You give him the nickname Dom Dom. But because you never bought this ad space and sold your chairs, you will never meet Dom Dom. So buy this ad space. Do it for Dom Dom.
John has come back from his crying break.
How red my eyes are.
We will now go back into the past when John was just applying for design school, and we wonder, you know, what are great tips for someone like John who wants to apply to design school?
Is that there's this thing known as the early admission exercise right now. So instead of after you get the O-levels result, you apply for the course, you can actually apply for it earlier, even before you take your O-levels, to indicate your interest. And usually we will advise the students that you know, it's good to prepare a portfolio. So put together pieces of work that it's design art related. And so that if you apply for the early admission exercise, you have to come for an aptitude test. You've got to go through an interview, and then of course the walkthrough of your portfolio. That will put you in a good position. I think where the school is concerned is just to instead of O-levels where we have absolutely no idea where the students are coming from, except their grades.
Yeah.
The early admission exercise, the advantage to that is that at least there's an indication that I have an interest, hopefully a passion in this area. The aptitude test will indicate whether they kind of have an eye, a kind of a framework in the mind for design, and as well as the interview getting us to know them. After talking to them, we have a clear indication that whether this potential applicant is suited to study design.
If I could chime in here as well, I was part of the early admissions exercise, and I actually applied to another polytechnic with a similar course, which I will not name. And I went to that poly's early admission interview and SP's early admission interview. And even though I ended up in the first poly initially, I was so sure that SP was a better choice. Maybe our souls were connected.
Thank you, Singapore Poly.
Yeah. Sponsor us. That I ended up transferring to the other course. So it's not just a way to try to get into the course, it's also a good way to see if, the school, the place, the lecturers are the right fit for you. Education is important. Sponsor us, MOE.
Listen to John.
Look into my eyes.
Okay, so now that John has gotten into school,
Yes.
design school, what tips do you have for students to do better in design school?
Okay.
Listen up, current students.
Yes.
Insider info.
If you were to ask me the key to poly education, which is a tertiary education, it's a lot to hinge on self-directed learning. I mean, the fact of the matter is this. I mean, we look at 3 years is quite a substantial period to study and get a diploma. But if you were to break it down into semesters, we are looking at like 15 academic weeks to teach a certain range of skills. And truth be told, we don't really have much of a time, and how much, there's only so much we can pack within a certain curriculum or module. So tertiary education is such that we provide certain directions. What is important is to get the students to come together and for application. so that it trains their mind. It allows them to kind of like apply what they have learned. But a lot of these basic skills, the onus is very much on the students to pick it up on themselves, to go beyond what are being taught in the classroom. Yeah. So self-directed learning, SDL for short. It's what will differentiate a good student from a mediocre one, because the good ones they are very driven. They will they will go beyond, like, I learned this skill, now how can I be better at it, or how can I learn more other than what are being taught in a classroom.
Sorry, SDL. Sponsor us, SDL. Wait, SDL is not a.
It's not a company.
Oh.
It's not.
It's really not. John, please don't try so hard. Okay,
Right.
so we're gonna switch gears a bit.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for sharing about lecturing, and I hope
school.
all you 15, 16-year-olds, 17, 18-year-olds,
Or 55-year-olds who want to go back to school.
yeah, who are
Adult
thinking
learners.
about design,
SDL.
self-directed
Learning.
Yes. Anyway, John.
Yes.
I was saying I hope all you kids and possibly other people, think about what Leslie has shared, and I hope that it helps you make a decision, prepare you. Maybe you're nervous about going to design school, about pursuing a career in design, that maybe Leslie has kind of helped you feel better about it. But now,
we shift gears.
Yes.
Wait, you're the wheel? Okay.
all right, ready?
I don't have a driver's license. We're going from gear 7 to gear. I don't know how to drive.
Yeah, okay,
So,
wait.
Leslie, we want to talk about your other secret Batman style life of being a photographer. So, Leslie, in addition to being a lecturer, is also an amazing photographer who has recently published a photo book called Vendorama, which chronicles the lives of vendors, street vendors, and non-street vendors? Vendors around the region through the eyes of Leslie. Can you tell us a bit about that project? Like, what was the impetus, and how was it like getting that book published with an exhibition?
I have all along loved photography. Being a graphic designer, photography is always an integral part of the process of design. I did get involved in commercial shooting way back, but when it came to a point where I make a decision, to choose design or photography, so I decided to go with design. So, but photography is always there. At this point of my life, it's something that I enjoy doing, and the thing about photography for me right now is that I have decided to keep it in such a way that it's not in any way commercially linked. It's an art form to me, and by not linking it to anything commercial, I find that I am able to keep it pure. So I don't have like a client at the back of my mind say, hey, this is how you should shoot it, this is how I want it. But as an artist, I think that's one of the greatest advantage of being an artist is that I get to do what I want to do. It's my expression, it's my emotions, it's how I would choose to tell the story in how I capture the pictures. So and so that's how it has been for me. The journey was kind of like it's a learning journey for me, because when I started to get back to photography as something leisurely, I kind of like shoot still life. So when I started, I had this series called Ordinary Colors, where I just walk the streets, go to backyard, go to construction sites, and I would just shoot non-human things, still life, colorful things. So the way how things are can be composited and be shot. But as I you know start to grow in photography, I kind of like challenge myself. I mean, if you look around storylines, interesting blogs, articles, magazines, a lot of the stories, I would say most of the stories are human centric, and I always felt very awkward shooting humans, more so strangers. So that was about 4 years back. That was a challenge I kind of like issue myself. So eventually, the genre of street photography is just attracts me because it's so raw, so natural. Yeah, and I told myself this is what I would challenge myself to do, to get into street photography and shoot strangers. Yeah. So that's how the background of the book came about. I mean, over a 4-year journey, eventually I kind of like compile it. And I mean, coming out with a book is something that I always want to do. It's one of those bucket list thing, you know, to really have something. And you know, once I'm done with, you know, at least there's this book that's being left behind and say, hey, you know, Leslie was here. Yeah. So that was how it came about. Yeah.
Speaking of street photography and the fear of shooting strangers, this is something I hear a lot from photographers. What was your process to overcoming that? Was it a really long lens or just a heart of steel?
No, it's actually the reverse. Of course, you know, typically anybody who wants to, in this day and age, anybody who wants to get into anything, you have to do quite a bit of homework, a lot of read up, a lot of research. And I found out that actually it's not so much a long lens, it's actually a short lens, a wide angle lens, so that you can be immersed in the environment that you're shooting. Because if you cannot feel the environment, you cannot be immersed with it, it's hard to capture that mood, that emotion at that point of time. So that was what I decided to go with, a wide angle lens. And in the beginning, it's typical, you know, I shoot people from the back because they don't know, you know, how these strangers click. You do not know I take a picture because I shot your back. So it's a lot of composition with back view, maybe some side views, and eventually, you know, as I went along, I mastered up a little bit more courage, and I approach people. I'll ask for permission. You know, hey, you look great with the hairstyle. If you don't mind, I can take a picture of you. And rejection rates very high, and were very high, yeah. And so it progressed from there. So right now, the way I go about it is that, you see, the thing about requesting for permission is that photo doesn't have that natural you know, that natural story to tell. The person is not in the midst of doing something. I like to shoot vendors, so I like to capture them when they are about doing their work. You know, what's the expression? Is there any emotions, expressions that I can capture them as they are doing their work? That kind of thing. So I find that asking for permission, it's doesn't give me the kind of result I want. So the only way to go about it is to shoot discreetly. Yes. Yeah. So I am what they call a hipster right now because I shoot from the hip. So yeah, people are not aware much. There's a big difference as you raise your camera up and people are like, you're trying to take a picture, as versus I just go in. I held the camera at my at my waist, snap a shot and a few shots perhaps, and out the scene I go. Yeah.
How do you work with composition shooting from the hip?
A lot of trial and error. So initially I get a lot of photos headless, you know, but that's the thing about sticking to a camera and a particular lens, because as you practice, you kind of like get the hang of it. Yeah. So that's how I have kind of like grown, learned, evolved.
And And photography is such a evolving kind of craft, right? You have new cameras all the time, new lens. How do you keep up with it, or do you feel like you need to keep up with it as a photographer?
Okay, I am an old school shutterbug, so I do not really keep up much with. I do a lot of readings, but where equipment's gears are concerned, I find that there's still so much to learn from the camera and the lens that I've been using for 4 years. There's still so much to learn from it. I mean, my common go-to specs on a camera is, for example, an f8, at least 250 shutter speed. I have not really gone into the 5.6. I have not really gone into the 2.8 f-stop yet. So there's still so much to learn from it. So I don't find an inclination of about getting a longer lens, getting a wider lens, getting a higher megapixel camera. So I am. I mean, it's my own pace. Like what I say, it's not commercially linked. So I am having a good time exploring, discovering about this camera that I'm having and this lens. Although I've had it for say about close to 4 years.
Tell us about your partner in crime, the camera and the lens. For the gearheads out there, this one's for you.
I started off shooting a Canon autofocus. So eventually, I believe you have heard of Leica and how costly it is. The heritage, how classic it is. So when I was shooting Canon, it's like, okay, one day maybe I can buy a Leica, and that day did come, but it did not come without its apprehensions, because you have to drop all the technical advancement in the field of photography, autofocus, all those impressive stuff, and got to go back to the old school of counting f-stops, of kind of like assessing light by feel, very mechanic. You have to adjust the shutter speed, you have to adjust the aperture, but it's what I like. It's what I like, because the manual way it kind of like hone my skills as I go along. So it's a very technologically, it's a very old school kind of a camera, but the build is solid. The lens quality, I think if you would Google Leica lens, you'll be very clear what I'm talking about. It's really superb quality.
What focal length do you shoot at? For
35 mm.
A true classic. We just realized we went through this whole segment talking about Vendorama without holding a copy of Vendorama. This is Vendorama. It's filled with pictures of street vendors shot in glorious Leica quality black and white.
And if you're Singaporean, it's really amazing. They have some pictures of the Thieves Market and some of the places that
Heritage.
are not here anymore. So please get the book.
And my copy is autographed.
Okay, John, this is not about you. All right. And I guess I would like to ask the question about your lecturer, and you're an artist, and how do you think they influence each of your careers, jobs?
How do they influence each other?
Yeah.
I think the most immediate layer would be the craft in itself. For example, critical things like composition. So how there's so many layers of composition. How I can get to see something that is not there as if it is. So photography helps me to kind of like do that, because the streets is not like a scenic New Zealand, Iceland, for example. So it trains me to be very observant, to keep my eyes open, to look at the extraordinary among the ordinary. So that has a very direct impact to design, because it's looking at something as ordinary as everyday things that we see, and see how we can yeah, find that sparkle on the soft skill side, like what I've mentioned. Observation skill is very very important for a designer. So being out in the street it's a lot of you don't just, I mean, yes, you use your eyes to see, but to capture a visual, you have to kind of like involve your other senses as well. Sometimes I let the smell leads me to where maybe something interesting in. Sometimes it's the sound. And simple things like I shoot in black and white, so the ability to kind of like, I mean, we see colors all around us. How do we interpret colors into tones? Yeah, so things like that.
Wow.
Yeah, and of course, as a lecturer, you got to have an Instagram page where you kind of like tell the new students, hey, come and look at my photos.
Yeah.
And
That's how you know you're getting a good education.
Is
What's
that-
your Instagram handle, by the way, Leslie?
Lesneo, Lesneo.
6 letters. Short and sweet. Black and white. Leslie, lecturer. Also, a father. So, Leslie, your daughter recently graduated from the very course that you teach, and you must be feeling so proud. Could you tell us a bit about raising a creative child?
Wow, that is such a high calling, raising a creative child. I don't even know what that is. Okay, truth be told, she is influenced by the things that I do, but the truth of the matter is that oftentimes I will keep my distance, because to me it's very important that she make her own choice. I mean, you cannot force creativity. I'm in a design education, so we believe that creativity can be taught, okay, but you cannot force it. Because as she grows, it's pretty much a choice whether is it something that she wants to do. So over the years, yeah, she enjoys things like doing art. She enjoys solving problems. Yeah, so it was a choice actually that she got into the course that I'm teaching. Believe me, okay, I'm really telling the truth. It's her choice, okay. It has very little to do with me, but she did her own research. She checked out the different polys, similar courses, and it was her choice to say, okay, yes, this is the course that I want to get into. So yes, I'm very proud that she's going to graduate soon. Yeah.
And what advice do you have for parents who may be having a very talented creative right in their homes, and maybe they're not so familiar with the industry, and in Singapore they have a stigma that arts have no money. What advice do you have for parents like that?
I would I think that's a good question. I would really not only want to use this interview to make a statement about it. I mean, as a parent, I would even go as far as to plead with all parents out there that the world is really changing, the industry is really changing, and that age-old mindset that certain careers are more stable than the others may not be true all the time. I mean, it's a proven fact that very stable careers, jobs can also be gone in overnight. So where design or creativity is concerned, the big advantage is in that is that it really trains the practitioner to be very versatile. Yeah. So back to the earlier question that we talked about designers not ending up in creative industry. I can safely and proudly say that a lot of the students who have graduated, they have carved out very interesting careers for themselves. But when we get into conversations with them, a lot of them, in fact, I would say most of them, including John, yes, though it's not about him, who will say that actually the basic design education has a lot of great foundation to have that versatility, to adopt, to adapt, as the career challenges come along the way. So it is really, really not bad a thing to really consider having a design education as perhaps one of the phase in the life of a child, of a student. Yeah, I mean, we have said it's a discovery stage. They may change their mind. The student may change their mind. Some of them went on to take psychology. Some of them end up as copywriters, so on and so forth. But this phase, the study of design, it allows them to be really, really versatile in their thinking and their applications in life.
And that's 100% true. I'm doing okay. Mom, I'm doing okay.
All right.
It's not about me. It's not about me. It's not about me.
But we hope you parents are listening as well, and we hope that you encourage your kids, if you have a child that has been interested in the arts or design for a really long time, that you hear Leslie's words and stop oppressing your kid.
Oh, strong words.
Encourage them to pursue their dreams.
And that leads us to the end of the interview, but something we do for every guest. We would like to promote something of yours. Maybe it's your Instagram handle. Maybe it's the book. Maybe it's a phrase or an idea or a thought.
Or an upcoming project.
And we will perform it in song and dance.
Yes.
I'm alright that it's just an Instagram handle.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the Instagram handle. What's your favorite genre of music, Leslie?
Yeah.
Wow.
Throw it at us.
Wow. Okay. Country music. No.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
It's not my favorite.
Giddy
Alright.
up the wild house.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm sorry.
Shanice be whacking the table.
I take this very
But
seriously.
you should be whacking the button on your phone to be following
Video.
LESNEO. That spells Lesneo.
Alright, everybody.
Yeah, let's
sing
go up
with me.
and follow Leslie Neo on Instagram. Kazoo break.
Holla at ya.
That was horrible.
That
Thank you
was-
for tuning in to this episode of Tropical Arts Club.
Please tune in next week. The music will be better.
Exactly. And big thanks to Leslie for being a wonderful guest and for the fantastic education. I owe you so much. Tune in next week
Thank you.
for more Tropical Arts Club.
Yes, please
Yeah.
do. Do not turn off the screen. Please.
No. It's not about me.
It really.
It's not about me. We hope you enjoyed the Tropical Arts Club. If you'd like to catch more episodes, be sure to hit subscribe and don't forget to follow us on Instagram.